Okay, you didn't mention what inspired you to join.
Well, the name of the event itself.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Ricky, please.
Hey, always glad to be here. My background has mostly been in working with early stage startups to build out their sales motions and engage with customers. But I've been the local VR guy since like 2017 and was giving hundreds and hundreds of VR demos without even really noticing it. Just with friends after game nights and after a night at the bars or just like a little afternoon fun. And eventually stumbled my way into working with big enterprise to build these virtual programs. And
Mhm.
with that, a lot of thought has been put into how can VR be the bridge between human work and AI work and creating this kind of shared virtual workspace for human workers and AI workers. So that's most of the work that I'm doing today with Arthur is around this kind of virtual AI and human collaboration. But I also host a podcast called the Moderator Podcast, where I interview founders of XR and AI companies, as well as business leaders, about pragmatic, real use cases for the technology, how they adopt it, how they buy and sell it, and kind of make these programs real and kind of a little bit more tangible than just an idea. The reason I love participating in GatherVerse, I've known Christopher Lafayette for a while, and I think he does a good job of engaging different types of leaders from all over the world and different kind of little pieces and segments of emerging technologies. And so every time I join one of these panels, I always hear some unique perspective that's so different than my experience or my little echo chamber of the industry. And so that's what brings me back to joining the GatherVerse and kind of being a part of these panels.
Yeah, thank you very much. A shout out to Christopher Lafayette. And yeah, well done, Rocky. Alison, it's good to see you again. It's good to see you. Welcome.
Hi, it's good to see you too from the fireside chat.
Yeah.
Um, I'm Alison Morano. I am the founder of the Metaverse Chamber of Commerce. I also a creator and a world builder, and I work in XR and AI, and I love these Gatherverse events because, like Ricky just said, they bring together so many leaders from all over the world. Um, I I really firmly believe that if we don't embrace the technology and start using it, it goes away, right? That's why I started the chamber, because I believe that we all have to work together to make sure that everything we do is on a forward path and is good and ethical, and we all work together to make sure that this thrives and doesn't go off in a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we gathered. Thank you very much, Alison. Alan, please.
Hi, my name is Alan. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm the founder of Studio Bahia. I founded Studio Bahia in response to suicide, self-mutilation. I used to work at the World Bank and do large-scale projects for reducing suffering and pain in and around conflict zones. So in refugee camps, I decided we do embodied therapies, a Google Cardboard approach. And so I'm the designer, but these are our headsets. They come in these lunch cases. And incidentally, we're successful in hospitals. So you can find these in American hospitals. And we manufacture out of 7 factories. And this is the case. It's like a little McDonald's Happy Meal. So besides that, our team does all sorts of psychological research and therapies in different universities, early detection of Alzheimer's, dementia. We're doing right now EMDR, which is a way to process trauma. Because most people, about 15% of people who leave hospitals develop PTSD. But if you do EMDR, you're able to reduce that significantly. So that's a project we're doing right now. I'm very happy to be with you all. I really love GatherVerse because of the diversity. And so I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. Alan, sorry. And great work on what you do at the very, very, very important, really an impactful work as well. Panelists, it's really, really good to see you on this roundtable panel, and you're welcome once again to the roundtable. Feel free to share your perspective or your perspectives as we go around the questions. So I'd love to start with you, Christina. you'll be the one to open us to the panel, to the conversation. I'd like for you to share with us what you think on this, and every other person can chime in. How does living with extended intelligence change creativity and imagination?
Well, I will answer mostly from educational perspective because that's what I'm doing. I'm researching into the metaverse as a learning environment. So, as an educator, I would say that when a student finds himself or herself in a metaverse learning environment, there's no limits. So the possibilities for learning are endless. And obviously, this brings up new opportunities for creativity to develop. And we are developing at NetHub, for example, language courses. So one of the very nice experience I had was with a student who we were working on understanding in French usage of articles or things like that. And the students, they literally started building like a virtual zoo with animals. And like this, by sorting and putting the different animals in different cages, they organized and realized how the articles function in French, which is something amazing because for English speakers, it's very difficult to conceptualize the idea of article. That articles you don't have in English that much variation as you have in French. So combining of the learning objectives with creative approaches can help learning happen faster in a metaverse-based learning environment. Salvation, you're muted, I think.
I don't know, sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Obi. I'm also an educationist myself, and I can relate to what you just shared here right now. So thank you. Um, Rocky, do you have something to contribute to this?
I think that the learning experiences are kind of a critical piece of this, right? Like when we're dealing with immersive tech and AI, and yeah, I think that's the starting point is when you have a younger audience kind of going into the workforce, kind of reframing the technology at the beginning, it's going to lead to what the new systems are. So like as a person who's been working in a sales role for about a decade, I've seen 3 different playbooks kind of evolve over time. There was the old playbook from before automations existed at all, where people were just kind of manually sending emails and doing phone calls. And then we had these automated systems of email sequencers and kind of starting to create little if this then that kind of coded systems where you could say like this person's location or this person's job title. And there was a whole new education of how do you work within these tools and how do you follow this playbook. And now today, AI is kind of taking that to another step where we have an entirely new playbook being relearned. And when that happens, there's this moment where there's a whole opportunity for people to recreate how those systems work, what type of roles and responsibilities need to exist in the first place. So right now in the sales world, there's this brand new job of a go-to-market engineer that never needed to exist before. And now with these new technologies and these new systems, there's a whole group of Gen Z kind of go-to-market engineers that are building their own agencies and creating their own plays and building their own job that didn't even exist 5 or 10 years ago. And so I think for educators, there's an opportunity there to equip young people with these tools and give them a lot of creative freedom to experiment so that they can kind of enter this workforce knowing how those tools work and kind of helping share new playbooks with the kind of existing ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you. Just as Dr. Obi has mentioned, I agree with you, Rocky. It creates a big a sense of access, especially for this generation. So I agree with you. So Dr. Allison, I'd like for you to move us forward to the XR Argo. I know this is your dynamics. How can one build a personal identity in XRO that isn't tied to any one platform? with the work you do with XR ruling. I'd like for you to tell us more on this. You're muted, sorry, Alison.
Okay. Yeah. So this question is really good because we are at a crossroads right now. We all want to have our own personal identity, and we all want to have something that we can take with us from platform to platform. I'm going to use the Meta Quest as an example. There are so many different apps that are working on their own, and there's something the interoperability of each of the apps has become kind of where, like I said, we're at a kind of a crossroads. It's sometimes difficult to go from app to app in general, but to take your personality with you and your avatar and your profile is also very difficult. The second piece of this is that there have been a few developers that have created identity apps where you can take the same avatar and personality from app to app that works and integrates with that particular app or that particular company. However, I'm going to use Ready Player Me right now. This is where we are at a crossroads because they integrated with several different apps across the MetaQuest platform, let's say, and people had developed their own profile and they had developed their own identity. And a month and a half ago, they sold to Netflix and announced that Ready Player Me was being shut down. And so now everybody is back to using the native avatars in the apps that they go into. For example, VR chat is something that's in the headset and an immersive 3D. And then you also can use it in something called Frame, which you use on your 2D desktop browser. And so we're kind of scrambling. So part of the problem is that we do want to build a personal identity. I don't know anybody that doesn't want this. I had worked on a project with an education system. We were calling them passports, and we were calling them Infinite Citizens. And the idea was you could move with this. But again, even if we had moved forward with it, which is still there, but we can't interoperate with a lot of the different apps that are on the headset. And this is an issue. So first, you really do want to build your digital twin. You want to find out what it is about you. You want to take from place to place. We are limited by the technology today, which is limited by memory. It's limited by speed. It's limited by app interoperability with each other. And it's limited by the overarching company of whatever headset you own. But I do recommend that everybody thinks about the fact that you should have your own personal identity that you want to take from place to place as we go through immersive worlds. So we're kind of up against something like that. I work with a group called Metro Traversal, where we go from portal to portal to show the friction and to show the lack of interoperability from one app to another, one world to another. But we are moving forward. So that's where we are right now. And it's an interesting question to talk about. Because we do need to figure this out.
Yes, exactly. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I actually have a follow-on thought on this topic too. So I used to think when a couple of years ago, I was thinking very attached to like the visual of an avatar as like a virtual identity of being able to have that consistent look across multiple platforms. But something I've found kind of the deeper I get into this is that there's also like you're still who you are outside of XR, right? Like you're still yourself. And there's all these opportunities to share content, whether that's on LinkedIn or as like a short Instagram reel or a podcast or a newsletter or whatever it is. And so there's this opportunity to kind of share your personality at scale and be able to kind of just share little bits and pieces of how you think and how you look at the world. That when you then go into an XR environment, if someone has seen any of the rest of that content, they already know little bits of who you are, and it kind of adds to your persona. So I think that's under talked about sometimes, is that your XR personality is still just an extension of your actual personality and who you are. And so thinking of it almost as just an additional channel or another place to kind of share your personality, I think it's a part of that full ecosystem of traditional content, traditional mediums, in addition to these XR spaces.
It's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, I have a backup question with what you just shared with us now, Rocky and Alison. How can you say the progress has been so far with building digital identities?
I think we're moving as fast as the technology allows us.
Mm-hmm.
And Ricky's right. There are ways to bring your personality. And when I build worlds, they do have similarities depending, in no matter which app you're in. And I think that comes through. I think the easiest way to look at this again, for consistency, even if you do have different outward appearances where you are, is I consistently use my name. My handles aren't different from app to app. They're not even different social media platform to social media platform. I wanted people to be able to find me wherever they are and whatever app and whatever search they're doing. And to the personality that comes through, I'm always really happy and excited when the person I've met online in an avatar or just in a discussion and I meet them in person are the same. I think that it's different than when you just have a text chat or a flat chat with somebody. You don't get their personality. But when I've met people in real life that I've interacted with in these different environments, they're always the same, and that's my favorite part of it. So your personality absolutely comes through in the avatars. That's something that you don't even have to worry about, I believe.
Yeah, and
Unless it's deliberate, which I hope it's not.
I think there's two things there I want to attach to. Is one, I think that idea of anchoring some consistency is really important. It's like what you said about consistent handles across different platforms. I totally agree. I think when I was like a teenager, all of my different social medias were totally different and they each had their own representation. And like the longer I live and the more I figure out who I am, now all of these different channels kind of are tied to one persona. It's like gotten to be really consistent. And that gives an anchor for people to be like, oh, this is familiar. Like I kind of know who I'm talking to. Like maybe color tones are similar too. Like there's all sorts of things you can kind of anchor around for consistency. But the second thing you said about meeting someone in person and them actually being themselves, I think that also amplifies the relationship in XR. So I have this group of guys that all work in the industry. They live in different states like Utah, Texas. Like I'm out here in California. One of them is in Ohio. And we play VR games together pretty frequently. And sometimes we're in Demio and we have one character, and sometimes it's Exploding Kittens or whatever else. And our characters change in every environment. We always look different. But we've also met each other in person a few times now at AWE or CES or some of these trade shows where we've gotten to meet in person. And that has changed the way we interact in XR. It's this really intimate feeling where you can sit around a table just like virtually painting figurines and it feels like you're in the same room because you have that familiarity with each other. You have that kind of memory of having been in the same room before. So I think of XR almost like if social media is this like large scale audience and it's like very messy, it's almost like just walking around your neighborhood and there's hundreds of people or thousands of people all over the world just moving, living their lives. XR is almost like that intimate workshop room or that little breakout area of an event where you get to have a smaller, more intimate experience with people.
Thank you very much, Rocky. I think Alison and Rocky has done justice to this question, so I have little to add to it. So I will
Can
just
I
move
just
on to the.
add
Oh
something?
yeah, yeah, Dr. Obe, please. Okay.
Yeah, this reminds me of something that we're discussing on one of the European Commission meetings, and at a certain point, I was saying that we struggle so much with the technical side of the interoperability. Well, we have to stop and maybe ask ourselves, is it really the identity? Is it really an interoperability? Is it really something technical or is it rather something human? I think what makes the metaverse and the different apps that create the metaverse interoperable is the human being, is not the avatar, the way it looks and things like that. So it's not a matter of taking the same look of the avatar to another platform, but rather taking the same person to another platform. So the identity behind. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. We connect with the human, not really the avatar in platforms. Yeah, I agree with that, Dr. Obi. And I will just push forward because this question has been well explained. And Alan, I'd like for you to come in here. and share with us what does cognitive support become, when does cognitive support become cognitive dependence?
Great question. Thank you. I think it really depends because there's so many technologies right now that we do become dependent on, right? Kids are given phones or they have tracking devices. Their mothers are putting tracking devices on their backpack. There's so many technologies that we're quietly dependent on. And I think cars now, that self-driving cars, we will very easily move into that and not even notice much change. I think we'll just be, I personally don't care for driving. So I'm really happy about it. But I also have like elderly family who I think will be able to get out and about more. And so I think there's the dependence is almost a consistent quality, specifically in a
Mm,
culture like here in the United States where we're kind of addicted to innovation and development. There isn't really conscious understanding that there's other cultures that don't have that fervent neurotic progress in them, right? And we probably even take it for granted ourselves that that this is the way of the world. But there's cultures all over that do not do that. So with regard to extended reality, I think there's two concerns that we should have in mind, and this comes from I think one of them is time perception, and the second one is intuition. And so the development of intuition and experiences that develop our intuition um, can really be significantly altered or suppressed by certain technologies. I can share this only from my own experience. I can't talk about other people's experience, but I've lived in 10 countries. I've backpacked 80, 90 countries. And my intuition backpacking through North Africa, West Africa, Latin America, I grew up in Latin America. My intuition saved my life a lot of times. And so I see people who maybe didn't have that experience or whose parents are very protective and they don't get a chance to develop this intuition, right, that can save your life. Or they're too dependent on these technologies that their intuition hasn't been able to develop to the point where your intuition is really intimate to your survival in this world. And so I just like to put out their intuition and developing that intuition. And then also time perception. During the pandemic, we had a huge shift in time perception. Some of you might have noticed during the pandemic that time became very slow, or some days became very long, right? And this time perception was studied and created one of the largest databases ever done. And it
mm,
showed that time perception had a big impact on people's mental health. And so, in my case, the pandemic had a very positive effect on my time perception. I had less anxiety. I had some social anxiety, like most people, right? But I came into a better phase in my life. But at the same time, in other segments of society, we have huge numbers of mental health concerns. We have a parental mental health crisis right now. In the United States, we have a youth mental health crisis. We have general acute mental health. So we have a lot of trouble. And underlying all of that, my own theory, is time perception. If you have a good, healthy time perception, you probably can deal with anxiety pretty easily, right? But there's other mental health concerns that rise up. So I think speaking more and learning more about how technology impacts your time perception and how does it impact the development of your intuition, which is central to your survival.
mm. Thank you very much, Alan. I like for the fact that you mentioned culture and you also mentioned intuition. I personally believe intuition a lot because it's really has helped me in several ways where my rationality failed me. I just need to follow my intuition, and yeah, it goes as planned. So thank you very much for sharing that deeply with us. Tanya, over to you. But before you jump into the questions, kindly introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining in from. Oh, we can hear you. Try to unmute. I can't hear you, Tanya. Okay. No. Okay, so we just come back to Dr. Obi. Why try to fix our audio? Is this better? No. Okay, Tanya, perhaps we can you hear us now? We still can't hear you. No, no, no. Okay, Dr. Tanya, while you're trying to get your audio, sorry, Tanya, while you're trying to get your audio fixed, we'll just move to Dr. Obi and then you can join us again. Thank you. Dr. Obi, please just head straight to this question. What does immersion deep? Okay, should I go ahead or you like to just take it up from there?
Yeah, it's a good question. It relates to exactly the last article I just sent to publishing, because we were discussing about immersion and the effect of immersion when you use immersive digital twins, basically. And it's interesting that the research shows that sometimes the immersion is good and has positive effects, but in other times immersion can be a distractor. So there's a lot of elements to consider when you decide as an educator if you're using an immersive technology to engage your students, or if you're using just a 2D technology to engage your students. And the main element that is defining what the type of technology you choose, I think that should be the learning objective, because depending on what you want to teach your students, it may be worth to use just plain Zoom or Teams or something 2D, rather than use a very powerful, on the other hand, tool as a 3D app. Because maybe putting students in a 3D app for just asking them to walk around and say what they did yesterday is not using fully the potential of the 3D app. You can use the 3D app for a lot of things, like, for example, experiential learning. And that's really using it for good, or manipulating objects that you cannot do in real life, or when you have the students online and you cannot make them manipulate objects. But why waste the resource of a 3D learning environment when the objective is very, very simple and can be achieved through using of simpler technology? So immersion is dependent, using of immersive technologies, in my opinion, is dependent on the learning environment and the objective that you want to achieve.
So without the objective, it's a distraction.
Could be.
Yeah. So Tanya is back here. Welcome, Tanya. Can you hear us now? Oh, we still can't hear you, Tanya. No, can't hear you. Can't hear you. No, no. I can hear you. No.
Try the setting buttons on your computer. Like,
Yeah.
I always forget there's a volume
Yeah.
on the bottom, and it's kind of like slash, and it's kind of, you have to go in there and take it off, and I always have that mistake.
Yeah. Okay, Tanya, maybe you can just disconnect your earpiece and use your audio directly if that works. Okay, why we wait for Tanya to fix the audio? We'll just go right into. Okay, Alan, I'd like for you to add to this. You work in the field and
Um, I think I think there's a great example out of Harvard University where they brought in AI to like one of the best courses ever taught. This is the best the Americans have to offer. It is called it's Material Science 2. It's been taught for decades. It has the best professors, assistant professors. It's a really well-oiled machine from the best of the Americans, right? And they decided, hey, we're going to bring in AI tutors. And they're like, okay, so they brought it in to see if you could improve this course, right? And it doubled the amount of learning in half the time. And so what we're going to see a lot of, I think, going forward with when it comes to understanding and learning is having a tutor alongside of your development in training or inside a course at your university, your high school. And so a lot of judgment of schools going forward is going to be what is the quality of your avatars and your AIs? And also, of course, the immersive qualities of this. Can you do AI avatar learning with visuals inside of virtual reality? And so that's where we're headed. But there's a great confidence when Harvard does this. It doubles the amount of learning. It's a lot quicker the learning. It's deeper the learning. And so I think it's going to be you're going to judge schools from now on the quality of their avatar. So parents are going to show up at schools and be like, "What kind of avatar you got?" So I think it's something that's going to stay. I think it's a good model for learning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Tanya, can you hear us now? Oh no, oh no. Oh, still can't hear you. No, no. Okay. All right. I'm really sorry about the audio issues, Tanya. Okay, so we'll just progress. Move to the next question. Rocky, I'm coming over to you with this one. How does extended intelligence change attention? You work with a lot of founders, and I think you have a lot to share with us on this.
Yeah, I think it's going to change a lot of things. I think it's funny. Like right now, the main use case for AI in business is like how do we draft better emails and how do we brainstorm ideas. But we already have too many ideas, and the email thing's going to become a commodity pretty quickly. So I think we can do a little better than that. The parallel I like to think about here is that there's a trend in the marketing world that's been happening for a long time, where marketing used to be like you have a big Super Bowl ad type campaign every year. You've got your big print campaign. It's this one-to-many story that you're telling to your entire audience, and all of your budget and all of your resources went into this big campaign for everyone. And then the internet kind of messed that up because now the internet has a million channels and like 10 times more content is needed. And you have more data, so you can segment your audience down. And instead of doing this one big campaign for everyone, you can say, I'm going to do a campaign for California that's totally different than a campaign for the south of France, that's totally different than a campaign for the Southeast Asia. And you start to create these segment-based campaigns that are a little more personalized and a little more tailored to each group of people. But with AI, we can take this another step further. Instead of it being one to many or one to segment, now it can be one to one. You can really hyper personalize your messaging down to the individual. For marketing, there's interesting things there, but I think for learning and education, it's very, very relevant because that's always been a problem with education is the teacher to student ratio and how much hands-on learning can you give to each student or to each employee. If someone's neurodivergent or has a different way of looking at the world, how do you give them special attention that meets them where they are instead of forcing them into the same box as everybody else? Super difficult problems to solve. But if you have these AI guided experiences that can tailor the information to the individual, answer their unique questions, meet them where they are on their journey so that if they can learn faster, they can move through the coursework faster. And if they're slower, they can move through the coursework more thoughtfully based on the struggles that they're having. That's very interesting. And so I think that when we think of AI attention, that hyper personalized journey for each user, whether that's a marketing campaign or a learning experience, that's where we can create something very engaging and very useful to each person that's taking in that content and interacting with it.
Thank you, Rocky. I like the fact that you channeled your attention to the positive side of this attention we're talking about on extended intelligence. I'd like for someone to chime in on the negative aspects, like give us a broader perspective. Yeah, Alison, please go on.
I think a lot of that is true, especially in the area. One of the most striking areas is the neurodivergent field. I'm working on a project in that area because I think we have a real chance to make major inroads in that field and helping. It's true, the one-to-one really is how we're talking to people now. And I think that the one thing that we haven't really touched on is the fact that we have so much help in how we do things now, that the idea is to use, you can ask, we have this AI system that helps us be creative and hopefully doesn't become cookie cutter, but we can ask about the best road to take or the best way to create something that will grab somebody's attention and keep their attention. When I talk to people about creating worlds and creating environments of their own, I talk about gamification as a way to keep people's attention and to retain their attention and retain their use of that world, because they went in and it was something that really caught them, and they want to come back and then they want to advance through that. So we can now use extended intelligence to help us build while making it, and then use ourselves in tandem to get something that's really creative and really attention getting, and also keep us moving forward without becoming boring, I suppose. The TLDR, we have a way to use these new AI system to help us find the most creative ways to reach out and to bring in and to keep focus. I All of this helps as long as we know what we're looking at and we can understand, using our own knowledge, what we should put in and what we should not, and what maybe is not necessary, and to add on to thinking about it. We need to stay creative and we need to use the help of AI, but add to it. And once we can recognize which pieces we should pull in, it just, the attention span will be there for people to continue to use.
Okay, Alan and Dr. Obi, I see your hands are up. But okay, Dr. Obi, you're already unmuted, so please take it forward.
Yeah, we're talking about attention, but we have to think about the brain and how the brain functions. And in fact, our brain is always bombarded with information and it selects the information. So our brain is never going to process all the information that comes to it. So if we get to having, through using AI, very targeted publicity, very targeted learning, we are trying to oblige the brain to process that whole information, which is not going to be possible. And the brain is going into, like the computers, in overdrive, and is going to crash. So I don't think that over exaggerating with personalization is the good way to do education. Just thinking from a physical and brain processing way. So Alan,
I'd
I,
like to challenge
I,
that, if anything, Dr. Obey. I'm just saying that people learn differently and they learn through different pedagogies, and some pedagogies match better with certain students. And so I think what Harvard was doing was allowing that AI tutor to go according to the learning process and needs that are of that student. Now, I like to say that obviously can be too overwhelming, where it actually hinders learning, and that's definitely a concern. But I think the problem we have with the Europeans and the Americans is that they're in denial about the use of AI. If you look at their education system, everybody's pretending they're not using it, and all the students are using it. The professors are using it, the assistant professors are, and everybody's pretending it's not happening. Well, if you look at the Chinese, they turned around and said, everybody use it as much as possible. So I think the Chinese took a much healthier approach. They're like, let's see what this does. let's see how it does. Instead of the whole United States, the Europeans pretending they're smarter than the AI and then going around telling people not to use it when everybody's using it. I think the whole thing is a bit ridiculous. And so I think there's a need to bring AI into education in a way that's personal to the learning process of each student. Neurodivergent students have a different model, so they need a different pedagogy, and you can do that very well as an AI tutors for most courses. But pretending AI doesn't exist by American educators is ridiculous, and Europeans as well. I think it's so ridiculous. I can't believe that. I talk to people who say this. You say, but I can look in your articles. You could not have done this without 10 years of research. I know that you used AI, you know?
Yeah, MIT actually did a study on professional use of AI and like success rates of programs and stuff. And exactly what you're talking about, Alan, they found, I forget if it was 40 or 60%. It was somewhere around half, a little under, a little over, of employees use AI that do not have commercial accounts for that AI use. So you end up having a significant amount of employees using the AI, whether the company says they can or not. And now you're opening up all sorts of regulatory compliance issues where it's like, if you have confidential information getting put into a non-confidential set of data, well, that's a bigger problem than if you use AI or not in the first place, right? And so it's a little bit of a mess right now that needs to be unraveled. Is the data infrastructure having kind of a centralized plan for a company or for a university, and then opening the door to usage in a way that's kind of kosher. It's like actually on the up and up.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, yay! I just want to say that I'm so happy to be here, and I'm working with leading academic institutions, cyber psychologists, neuroscientists, some professors that are AI experts do not allow their class to use AI because they want to help them develop their intelligence. And so they're not letting them in at Carleton with Dr. Jim Davies, who I'm working with, who runs the Only Science of Imagination Lab. And we're adapting his book. So I could just tell you a little bit about me now that I'm here. I'm CEO and founder of Kellen Content. And I have been running a film and television production and distribution company for almost 18 years. And we started an XR AI research lab in 2017 to look at how we can use creative industries' knowledge and imagination and creative technologies to enhance learning and to build an infrastructure with our venture studio to design new creative companies that will change the way we educate and teach creativity and imagination so that we can develop the programs and services that we need to create more jobs as the technology is changing so rapidly. And one of the things we're doing is we're working with Indigenous experts, and I am leading an Indigenous animation studio, the succession planning, and we're building new ways and new pathways to preserve and revitalize all Indigenous languages faster with responsible uses of ethical AI. And then we want to bring Indigenous ways into helping to preserve and protect all of our land and all of our culture in collaboration together so that we can create more regenerative practices and more jobs. And the biggest problem I see with how extended intelligence is going to change our attention is that we need to teach everyone greater cognitive critical thinking skills and not rely on AI to do that. And we must be able to protect our children and our youth to be able to discern with their own imagination how to think more critically so that they can be the entrepreneurs of the future to solve our problems that are coming at a pace that we've never seen before, like mental health, like our AI protection problems for responsible data and creating a culture of protecting our intellectual property so that we can derive greater wealth for every individual and everyone who is going to be more creative and more imaginative with the AI tools that we're implementing. So that's what I ask us all to do, is how are we going to do that? And let's get together and do it. And with our Creative Venture Studio, we're providing the connection, the funding, and the partnerships to do it collaboratively.
Interesting. Okay, Alan, you want to go in?
It's great to have you, Tanya. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to add to Ricky's comment and also maybe extend a little bit. There's a study about the use of AI, and it found that people who are less educated used it more than people who are educated. And so I think there's a little bit of an elitism problem with the Europeans and the Americans, where they think they're actually as intelligent as an AI or something like that. But the more educated, the more restrictions and the less use. And so you have a bit of an elitist quality where these people do not want their status to be challenged. And I understand that perfectly. But we still need to use it in a way that's effective, that's well designed, and complementary to the education of other people. To just go around saying no to AI, and you see it in academia, is the height of arrogance. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Tanya, welcome to the panel. It's so good to finally hear your voice. And I'm so sorry about your audio issues. And thank you for being persistent on that one. So welcome. I will come back to Alison now. We have 5 minutes on our plate, so I would like for Alison to briefly as you can, Alison, please share with us what responsibility comes with designing and extending human intelligence. I think this question is very, very key. It's like wrapping up everything we'll be saying here and trying to get to a point and all that. So briefly, in few seconds, Alison, if possible, please tell us.
So I think that the responsibility is the same across the board in any technology. We have to be mindful of ethics and bias and, again, critical thinking and questioning. Just because you get an answer doesn't mean that that is the answer. You should do your own research. Also, one of the things I'm noticing, because I'm in school right now. I've been a student for the last I don't know how many years, and I use AI all the time. And I was told by one of my professors, we're not using AI because I would like the pathways and the neurons to connect first. And I said, I'm past that. Mine are all connected, so I'm going to use it. But I do run it. I question everything. But we have to use the same trust engendering methods, no matter what we're doing, because AI and extended intelligence and whatever we're building may show us one thing that one way to look at something. We've got to look at the others, because another thing that I was saying that I noticed is that I've seen in some of my class discussions, I'm not getting unique answers from somebody else than somebody else is getting. So you see a repetitiveness in the answers that you're getting from different AI apps. And you need to be on the lookout for that, because then it becomes completely homogenized. So we just really have to make sure our own intelligence is working with the extended intelligence, because that's how we really build out and bring it all together. But thank you for today.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. I like that word, ethics. So I'm going to hold on to that, ethics. Alan, please.
We extending human intelligence, the responsibility. I was in a meeting this week, and we're training a small language model to do a therapy, and it's EMDR. It's a gold standard therapy. And so the way you do it is, because it's a procedural instead of an analytical one, we train the small language model with just exactly what it's supposed to say, and have all these security aspects and safety things in case the person going through is having too much of a hard time and it's too much for them. But so I think the way to do it, people are all about training these large language models, which is like, it's like an ocean. You can't control that ocean. It's much better if you learn to do and train small language models. Now, what used to be a small language model a year ago, today a small language model was as big as ChatGPT 3.5 now. So what we consider a small language model is incredibly powerful. And so I recommend people start building themselves small language models. You're going to end up finding it because it's going to be a hybrid system in the world. The Americans in Wall Street want this to be like an oligarchy where you have just everybody tunes into this data center, right? And about a couple of weeks ago, the electricity went out in San Francisco, and all these cars, self-driving cars, blocked all the traffic around the city because the electricity went out, right? This is Waymo cars all over San Francisco. And so you cannot have this system where you depend on a kind of a feudal American system. It needs to be a hybrid system with small language models in your car. That's what the Chinese are doing, and everybody else. It's like, and then you have small language models in equipment in hospitals. So these things will operate autonomously if the lights go out, right? And so it's hybrid model is what we're looking at. If you want to really take responsibility in design, you need to start with small language models and build it for something in your, I don't know, build it for a lawnmower, or something like that.
Yeah, build small language models. That's honesty. Sorry, Dr. Obi, just very briefly, maybe one word. We have less than 2 minutes. Then we'll move to Tanya, who has just joined us.
Uh, well, connecting to small language models, I think this is something that's happening in Europe, and it's the project phase. They're trying to build AI models that function for small languages. And I think that's something very important because, yes, we have AI models that function in English. That's excellent, marvelous. But what about, I don't know, Latvian or Finnish language? People who don't speak English won't be able to interact with that AI model. So we won't have the possibility of extending that uh, intelligence if they don't communicate in the same language. So I think the language element is extremely important, and having small AI models that function for small languages would be the next step.
Okay, thank you very much. Tanya, yeah, your call.
I'll make it very short and sweet. The goal for me when we're designing and extending human intelligence is to make sure that we're not designing systems where people feel helpless without using their AI, that there is a very big concern that there will be like an over automation factor where they're going to have a prompt addiction. And what design experts that we work with are focusing on is to make sure there's design success, that we amplify judgment, we amplify critical thinking, confidence, and discernment to be better humans. Because the goal is not to design a smarter system, it's to really make people more capable and have more competency in everything that they're doing so that they are assisted to be better humans and live better lives, not just to rely on paying a subscription that they're just going to be addicted to. So when we're in the act of creating and imagining, let's imagine systems that will give more humans more autonomy, more revenue, and a better quality of life together, because this is a collaborative environment and so powerful. And so we have to work collectively. And there is no one solution right now, but we're all designing for better solutions. So we must do it in a co-collaborative model. So grateful for GatherVerse to bringing us all together and to be discussing this. And I look forward to more. Thanks so much.
Of course, thank you very much, Tanya. Unfortunately, I won't be able to call Rocky, but he has already shared some great insight with us earlier on the panel. It's been a very, very wonderful panel conversation. I heard your perspective and your expressions are deeply valued. Thank you so much for joining this panel conversation. And Agata as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.